The house on Ashe Lane. You ever have something happen to you that you don't tell people about? Not because it's embarrassing or traumatic, but because you're scared someone might actually believe you? This is that kind of story. I've only talked about it once, a few years ago, when I got drunk with my cousin Josh. Even then, I left a lot out. But now that I've been back in town for a while, it's been sitting in my head more. Every time I drive past Ashe Lane, it creeps back in like smoke through a crack in the door. So I'm just gonna tell it, straight. You can believe it or not. I honestly don't care. It was fall, 2009. I was 16. Me, my cousin Josh, and our buddy Eric were hanging out in the parking lot behind the old mobile station. Cold night, but not snowing yet. One of those evenings where the wind slices through your hoodie and you wish you brought a heavier coat. We were talking crap, throwing bottle caps at each other when Josh brought up the house on Ashe Lane. Everyone in our town knew about that place. It had been abandoned since before we were born. Big Victorian thing, peeling paint, boarded up windows, the kind of place you pretend not to look at when you walk past it. The story went that back in the 80s, a family moved in. Barrow, I think the name was. And after a few months, they just stopped showing up to school, to work, everything. Cops went in and found all four of them. Mom, dad, and two kids dead in different rooms. No signs of forced entry, no clear cause of death. Like they just gave up, or something got to them. Naturally, that turned into a million local ghost stories. People said lights flickered on at night. You'd hear screaming if you walked by after midnight. There were rumors that a group of kids tried to stay overnight years ago, and one of them never came out. So, of course, Josh says, I dare you to sleep there. One night. In the living room. I'll give you $50. I said yes before I even had time to think about it. Dumb pride, mostly. I was the youngest of the group and constantly trying to prove I wasn't soft. We walked over together around 9:30 that night. The street was mostly empty, and Ashe Lane didn't even have streetlights anymore. The house was darker than dark, like it absorbed light instead of reflecting it. They waited on the sidewalk while I walked up the creaky front steps. Josh handed me a flashlight, a bottle of water, and a heavy-duty sleeping bag. If you chicken out, you owe us 50, he said, half joking, half serious. The front door was already slightly open. I pushed it gently, and it creaked like a horror movie cliche. Inside, the smell hit me immediately. Mildew, rot, and something sweet but rotten, like spoiled meat and flowers. I stepped inside and turned back to look at the guys, but they were already walking away. I was on my own. The house was silent. I mean completely. Not quiet. Dead. No wind through the cracks, no rats, no creaks or groans. It was unnatural. I sat up in the living room, rolled out the sleeping bag near the old fireplace. I sat for a while with the flashlight on, then turned it off to save the battery. Just me in the dark. I tried not to think too hard. To pass time, I played a game on my phone until it died, then pulled out a paperback book and tried to read by flashlight. I think I nodded off around 11:30. What woke me up, though, was a sharp thump from upstairs. At first I thought maybe something had fallen, a piece of the ceiling or a loose board, but then it happened again. Thump. 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 Heavy, deliberate, like someone walking around in boots. I sat up, clutching the flashlight. It flickered for a second, then steadied. I aimed it at the ceiling, like that would somehow help. The footsteps stopped. I held my breath, and then I heard what sounded like a door opening upstairs. A slow, grinding creak, followed by silence. Then something scraped across the floor above me, long and slow like furniture being dragged. I whispered to myself, it's just the house settling. I was just trying to make myself believe it, though. Then I heard what sounded like someone breathing. Not through the walls, not muffled. It was like someone was standing just outside the living room doorway, holding their breath with me. I didn't move for at least 10 minutes. I tried to convince myself to stay put, that the noises didn't mean anything. I only had to make it until dawn. But when the air in the room started getting colder, like refrigerator cold, I couldn't sit still anymore. I got up, flashlight in hand, and slowly moved towards the hallway. Every step I took felt like I was walking into deeper water, pressure building in my chest. I passed the stairs, trying not to look up, and noticed the kitchen door was slightly open. The basement door was at the back of the kitchen. It had always been locked when we were kids, daring each other to sneak up on the porch. Now it was wide open. No light, just blackness down the stairwell, and from that blackness came a sound. A voice, but not like someone speaking. It was humming. A slow, tuneless hum, like a lullaby sung under someone's breath. And it was coming up the stairs. I backed away fast, nearly tripping over myself. I closed the kitchen door and leaned against it. But the humming didn't stop. It got louder, closer. Then it stopped entirely, like someone had reached the top step and was listening. I didn't breathe. I didn't move. I don't even think I blinked. After what felt like an hour, but was probably just a few minutes, it went silent again. That was it. I wasn't proving anything to anyone anymore. I grabbed my stuff and ran to the front door. It wouldn't open. Of course. It wasn't jammed. It wasn't stuck. It felt like someone was holding it shut on the other side, like the house itself wanted me to stay. I backed away and turned towards the window. The glass looked brittle, old. I grabbed a piece of busted furniture and swung it. Crack. Spiderwebbed. Second hit, it shattered. I cleared the edges with my jacket sleeve and climbed through, cutting my arm in the process. Oh well. I hit the ground outside and didn't stop running until I made it 2 blocks down. Josh and Eric found me sitting on the curb near the park about 20 minutes later. I didn't say much, just told them I got spooked and left early. They thought it was hilarious, said I owed them the 50. I gave it to them without argument. I never told them about the breathing, or the humming, or the cold hand I swear I felt brush against mine as I crawled out the window. For weeks after, I couldn't sleep. I'd hear knocking on the walls of my room at 2 a.m. I'd hear footsteps in the hallway when everyone else was in bed. Once, I even heard the same humming, faint, like it was coming through the heating vents. Eventually it stopped. Or maybe I just stopped noticing. You get good at pretending things aren't happening when you need to. But I haven't been back to Ashe Lane since, and I won't, because I think that house knows who I am, and I think it's still waiting for me to come back. Edison Street. They say the house on Edison Street has been empty for 20 years. Every town has one. The crumbling relic at the edge of a dead-end road, cloaked in vines, windows like eyes that forgot how to blink. I never paid it much mind. I passed it almost daily on my way to work and chalked it up to local legend, until I had nowhere else to go. My name's Michael. I was 34 when everything fell apart. My marriage, my job, my lease. I didn't have many options left, so when my cousin Jenna told me the house was technically still in the family and I could stay there rent-free while I got back on my feet, I agreed. Desperation makes fools of us all. I arrived on a drizzling Tuesday afternoon in September. The house looked worse up close. The porch sagged, the door hung slightly off its hinges. Vines had forced their way between cracks in the foundation like veins under skin. Still, it had a roof, walls, running water, and electricity. That was enough. The first night, I didn't sleep. It wasn't fear, it was the cold. The old radiators rattled and hissed, but barely heated the space. I lay in a sleeping bag in the living room, listening to the house settle. I told myself every pop and creak had a logical explanation. Old wood, pipes, wind. On the third night, though, I heard the footsteps. They came around 2 a.m., measured, deliberate steps on the second floor, right above the living room. I froze. I hadn't gone upstairs yet. I told myself it was the house again, expanding and contracting with temperature shifts. But then they came again the next night, and the next, and the next. On the 5th night, I went upstairs. The staircase groaned under my weight. I held a flashlight like a weapon. The hallway was thick with dust. The air felt different, denser, colder. I opened each door slowly. A bathroom, 2 bedrooms, an office, nothing unusual. but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. That's when I noticed the mirror. It hung in the hallway between the two bedrooms. It was tall, framed in ornate black wood, the glass oddly pristine despite the dust around it. I passed by it twice before realizing something was wrong. My reflection was slower than it should have been, just a half-second delay like a bad video call. I leaned closer. My breath fogged the glass, but the reflection didn't. I touched the surface. It was ice cold. Then, just as I pulled my hand away, I saw movement, but not mine. Something shifted in the mirror behind me. I spun around quickly. The hallway was empty. I slept in my car that night. The next morning, I convinced myself I was tired, stressed. I went back inside and tried to clean up the place. I opened windows, washed dishes, vacuumed. Around noon, I found an old photo album in the office upstairs. It was full of black and white pictures, formal portraits mostly. One caught my eye, a family of 4 standing on the front porch of this very house. The parents stood stiffly, but the kids, 2 girls, maybe 10 and 12, had that strange, blurred look, like they just moved during the exposure. Written in neat cursive on the back, October 1911, last family photo. That night, the footsteps returned, louder, closer. They moved down the hallway, stopping outside the office. I was downstairs again, curled in the corner of the living room like a coward. Then I heard the office door creak open. I hadn't left it open. Something heavy fell, maybe the album. Then silence. I should have left then. Instead, I called Jenna. She sounded hesitant. Yeah, weird stuff happened when I was little. Mom never let us stay overnight. Said the house had bad blood. You should be careful. Don't look in the mirror. She hung up. I didn't sleep at all that night. I kept the lights on, but sometime around 3 a.m. they flickered and died. My flashlight wouldn't turn on either. Then the smell started, sweet and rotting, like spoiled fruit. It rolled down from upstairs like a fog. I pressed a cloth over my mouth and nose, but it didn't help. Then came the whispers. They started as faint murmurs, like someone talking just out of earshot. I thought maybe it was a radio, but the whispers grew clearer, louder. They weren't speaking English, or maybe they were, but the words were wrong, disjointed and stretched. I remember one phrase clearly. We remember you. I bolted. I stayed at a motel on the other side of town. The next morning, I returned with a plan. Get my things and get out. The house had other ideas, though. When I opened the front door, everything was different. The layout had shifted completely. Where the stairs once were was now a wall. The kitchen door led to a closet. The windows showed darkness even though it was noon. My phone had no signal. I tried to leave, but the front door wouldn't open. The knob spun freely. The air thickened. My ears popped like I was in an airplane. Then I saw the girls. They stood at the top of the stairs, where the stairs should have been at least. Their faces were blurred, smeared like wet paint. One wore a white dress stained dark at the hem. The other held something in her hand, a mirror shard. I backed into the living room. The mirror from the hallway was there now, propped against the fireplace. I watched as my reflection stepped forward before I did, reaching towards the glass. I don't remember blacking out, but when I woke up, I was outside, on the lawn. The house behind me looked normal again. Birds chirped, cars passed. I stumbled to the street. A neighbor saw me, asked if I was okay. I didn't answer. I never went back. Jenna filed paperwork to have the place condemned. 3 weeks later, I passed by Edison Street again. The house was gone. Not demolished, gone. The lot was empty, no rubble, no foundation. Just dirt and weeds. I don't know what happened in that house. I don't know what it was, but sometimes, in my bathroom mirror, when the light is just right, I see a figure behind me. Well, actually 2 figures. 2 girls. Holding hands. Waiting. The horror of Barrow Lane. I never thought I'd be one of those people. You know the type. The the ones who write cryptic posts on forums about their unexplainable experiences, or upload grainy YouTube videos of empty hallways and whispering voices. The kind of people you roll your eyes at, maybe even laugh at, because none of it ever feels real. But here I am, typing this out with my back against a hotel wall, 2 locks on the door, every light on in the room. I haven't slept in 2 days. I'm not sure I'll ever sleep properly again. I just need to get this story down, exactly how it happened, before I lose the nerve. Or before something else happens. It started 3 weeks ago. My uncle, who I barely knew, passed away. My dad's older brother. I hadn't seen the guy in over 20 years. I vaguely remembered him as quiet and kind of awkward at family functions. He was a contractor. Didn't have a wife or kids, or really anyone except for a cat that apparently ran off a day after he died. I didn't even know he owned a house in the first place, but apparently he did. A big one, out in the country. About 40 minutes outside of town on Barrow Lane, tucked back from the main road, surrounded by trees and brush. One of those places you'd never notice unless you knew it was there. He left the house to me in his will. Me, out of everyone. My dad didn't seem particularly surprised. Apparently they hadn't spoken in years. Something about a falling out over their parents' estate. My uncle had just gone off grid. I wasn't going to keep it. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment downtown. What was I going to do with a 5-bedroom colonial in the middle of nowhere? Still, the idea of checking it out, maybe fixing it up and selling it, didn't seem like a bad plan. The first time I went out there, I brought my friend Natalie with me. She's been my best friend since high school, and she's the kind of person who can talk you into doing anything. In this case, staying the night. "Come on," she said, half laughing as she shoved a case of hard seltzers in the back seat. "It'll be like a ghost hunting sleepover, just us and a haunted fixer-upper." I wish she hadn't joked like that. The drive out was uneventful. Barrow Lane is more like a long, gravel driveway than a street. It snakes off a quiet country road and disappears into a mess of tall grass and pine trees. The GPS freaked out halfway down it, constantly rerouting and stuttering. The house was bigger than I expected. 2 stories, white clapboard siding, mostly faded to gray, and a sagging wraparound porch. The windows were dusty but intact. The roof looked okay. All things considered, it wasn't in terrible shape. Old, yeah, but not abandoned level bad. Inside, it smelled like dust and stale air, but not like mold. That was a relief. The furniture was dated but decent. Lots of dark wood, doilies, framed black and white photos. It was like time had stopped in the 80s. I found a few papers in the kitchen that confirmed my uncle had still been living there up until his death. Electricity was still on, weirdly. No running water, though. Natalie found that out the hard way when she tried to flush the toilet. We spent the first couple hours exploring. Upstairs had 5 bedrooms, most empty except for a few old mattresses and broken down dressers. The master bedroom still had clothes hanging in the closet. Natalie pulled out a beige sweater and joked, "Ghost fashion show." I laughed, but something about touching his clothes felt wrong, like we were trespassing on something sacred. There was one room upstairs we couldn't get into. The door was locked and the key wasn't anywhere in sight. Natalie tried to jimmy it open with a butter knife, but no luck. The door was unusually solid. Heavy. There was a gap between the floor and the door, and when I crouched down and peeked through, I saw something that made my skin crawl. Nothing. Just pitch black. Not the kind of black you get from a dark room either. It felt empty, like the space itself just didn't exist. That night, we set up sleeping bags in the living room, cracked open the seltzers, and tried to make it feel like a fun little getaway. We played cards, we told stories. Natalie kept teasing me about being the lady of the manor. Around 1 a.m., the vibe changed. We both heard it, a soft scraping sound from upstairs, like someone dragging a chair across the floor. Natalie froze. What the hell was that? I laughed, but it was forced. Old house sounds? Then it came again, louder, then a soft thud, then what I swear to God sounded like footsteps, slow, deliberate. Natalie stood up. Nope, not doing this. You said no one else had a key, right?" I nodded. "Then who the hell's walking around up there?" We grabbed our phones and crept up the stairs. No weapons, just the dumb flashlight apps. Every step creaked. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. Natalie was breathing shallow, her hand gripping my arm. We checked every room. Empty. Silent. Except when we passed the locked door, we both stopped. I don't even know why, just instinct maybe. We both stared at it. That heavy wooden door with no sound coming from behind it anymore. But I could feel something, like being watched through the keyhole of a cathedral. Natalie whispered, "I want to go. Now." I nodded. We packed up and left. Didn't even finish our drinks. I didn't go back for a week. Natalie refused to talk about it. Every time I brought it up, she'd change the subject or get annoyed. It was just a freaky old house, she said. We scared ourselves. That's it. But she didn't believe that. I could tell. She looked tired, pale, jumpy, like something had gotten under her skin and stayed there. Eventually I convinced myself she was right. Maybe we had freaked ourselves out. Maybe it was raccoons or pipes or something equally boring. So I went back alone. That was the biggest mistake of my life. I didn't tell anyone I was going back. I kept thinking about the locked room. It gnawed at me. Not just curiosity, something more primal. Like I had to know what was behind that door. And a part of me, the dumb, arrogant part, figured I was overthinking everything. That I'd go back in daylight, check the place out, maybe bring a lock-picking set, and get this whole thing over with. The moment I turned onto Barrow Lane again, though, my stomach dropped. It was the same road, same trees, same gravel, but something felt different. Like the woods were leaning in closer than before. Like the trees had moved an inch or two overnight and never moved back. I parked and just sat there for a minute, staring at the house. I swear the windows were darker than they should have been, even with the overcast sky. As if the glass wasn't just reflecting less light, it was absorbing it. I let myself in through the front door and was immediately hit with a smell I hadn't noticed before, like rotting wood and something metallic. Not blood. I've smelled blood before, but close. Maybe rust, but stronger. The living room was just as we'd left it. Sleeping bags still bunched in the corner, empty cans on the floor. It felt like I was walking into a paused scene, like time had just frozen the moment we ran out the door. I made my way upstairs. The locked door was still there, and still very much locked. I had picked up a cheap lockpick kit off Amazon, mostly just for this purpose. I'd never used one before, but after 15 frustrating minutes of fiddling, something finally gave way with a click that felt too loud in the silence. The door opened an inch. I hesitated. The air coming out of that room was wrong. Cold, but not in a drafty way. More like the cold you feel at the back of a freezer. Heavy. Dense. And underneath it all, that same metallic rot smell, only stronger now. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was empty. No furniture, no light fixtures, just a square space, maybe 10 feet by 10 feet, with peeling wallpaper and a bare wooden floor. But the moment I stepped across the threshold, something shifted. I can't explain it. The room shifted. The light in the hallway behind me dimmed. The air pressure changed, like my ears popped, and the silence inside that room was total. No outside noise, no birds, not even the creak of the house, just a suffocating, unnatural stillness. There were scratches on the floorboards, deep ones, not like someone dropped furniture. These were long, curved, angry gashes, like something had been dragged or clawed. I suddenly felt very, very unwelcome. I stepped back. The moment my foot left the room, the pressure released. The hallway brightened again. Sound returned. Distant wind, floorboards groaning. I slammed the door shut without realizing it and immediately relocked it. Something was in there. Something I wasn't supposed to see. That night, back at the apartment, I had the worst dream of my life. I was back in the room, only this time the door shut behind me. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. The walls began to breathe, slowly pulsing in and out like lungs. A low hum filled the space, just under the threshold of hearing. And then I wasn't alone. There was something in the far corner. I couldn't see it. I could feel it, watching me, crawling toward me. Not fast, just steady, like it knew I couldn't escape. I woke up gasping for air. My apartment was freezing cold. I checked the thermostat. It was set to 73, but the air felt like the inside of a walk-in freezer. The next morning, Natalie called me. I hadn't heard from her in a week. Her voice was wrong, flat, slow, like she'd been drugged or hadn't slept in days. "Did you go back?" she asked. I didn't say anything. "You did, didn't you?" I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "Did you open it?" "Yeah." Long pause. "Okay," she whispered. "Then it knows." Click. I tried to call her back. 10 times. No answer. The next few days are a blur. I started hearing things in my apartment. Footsteps, whispering, not coming from outside, from inside. I started unplugging everything, convinced it was interference or a neighbor's TV or something. Didn't help. I'd come home from work and find small things moved. My toothbrush on the wrong side of the sink, my bedroom light on when I know I turned it off. One night I woke up with every light in my apartment turned on. Every single one. Except I hadn't gotten out of bed. I hadn't moved. That same night I found dirt on the floor. Just a few small clumps. At first I thought it was from my shoes, but I hadn't worn them inside. I followed the dirt trail. It led to my closet. When I opened it, the smell hit me like a wall. That same decaying, metallic stench. And on the inside of the closet door, written in what looked like ash or mold, was one word. Return. I went back one final time. I didn't even hesitate. I drove straight to the house, parked, and marched right up to the front door with a flashlight, a pry bar, and a loaded crowbar. I was done being scared. I was ready to burn the entire place to the ground if I had to. The house was dead quiet, but the front door was already open. Just slightly, like someone or something had been waiting for me, expecting me. The smell was stronger than ever. I covered my mouth with the rag soaked in vapor rub, but it barely helped. As I stepped inside, I felt it again. The shift, like the air had thickened, like something huge had turned its attention to me. I climbed the stairs, heart pounding, every creak under my feet like a warning. The door to the locked room was wide open. I didn't open it. I never left it open. Inside, the room had changed. No longer empty. Now, there were markings on the wall. Symbols, handprints, long scratch marks, and in the center of the floor, a hole. A small black hole about the size of a dinner plate. Perfectly round. Perfectly dark. I stepped closer, not because I wanted to, because something pulled me. There was a noise, a soft chittering, like dozens of teeth clacking together. It came from the hole. I knelt down. I don't know why. I leaned in. My flashlight flickered. My vision dimmed. And I heard it. Not a voice. Not in the normal sense. It was a thought. A presence. A knowing. "You opened the door." I staggered back. Something reached out of that hole. I didn't see it, but I felt it wrap around my ankle. Cold, dry fingers like twigs. I screamed and kicked and ran. I don't remember getting to the car. I barely remember driving away. I just remember the overwhelming feeling that something had followed me, that it wasn't bound to the house anymore, because I opened the door. That was 5 days ago. Natalie's gone. Her apartment's empty. No one has seen her. I checked myself into a hotel 2 towns over. I haven't gone home. I don't sleep more than an hour at a time. Every night I hear knocking, always in sets of 3. Last night it knocked from inside the closet. There's dirt under the door again. And tonight the hotel mirror fogged up. And when I wiped it clean, one word was written across it. Welcome.